Hello, my name is Beth Green, otherwise known as Granny Rocks.
And hello, my name is James Maynard, otherwise known as Sweet Baby James. You've come to Lighting the Way with Granny Raps and Granny Rocks. And tonight I'm handling the chat. Please chat with us, and Beth will reply to you directly in person if you're there in person tonight.
And if you're not in person, you can always comment later, and I will respond to you
Yes.
as soon as I see your comment. So tonight I'm going to be talking about feeling hopeful about our world. Why should we be hopeful about our world? Well, I'm going to tell you why I think so, and we'll see what you have to say. So please do comment as we go along in this program. So, obviously, we're in trouble. Our world is in very, very, very critical condition on so many levels. Obviously, the climate.
Oh, and we have a big hello from Elizabeth, who sends a heart of love. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank
Same
you,
back at ya.
Elizabeth. Yes, yes, indeed. Mwah. So, the Earth, global warming, it's catastrophic already. We don't have to wait to see catastrophe. Did you hear, James, that Maui is devastated
Maui,
with
really?
wildfires?
I had no idea.
Yeah, people are jumping into the water to get away from the fires.
Oh, Tracy says hello and sends caring and a smile. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy. So, the bad stuff is very, very obvious. The polarization in our society is very obvious. The confusion about what to do to solve our economic, social, political, ecological problems are it's a lot of despair.
Oh, and Todd sends a couple of big hearts of love and a big happy smile with lots of love. And he also says, hi there, you too.
Oh, thank
Back
you.
at you, Todd. Love to you.
So you can say, well, this is obvious, right? We're in kind of catastrophic shape. Suicides, confusion among young people,
Drug addictions.
drug addictions, homelessness, and unhousedness, whatever you call it. Okay, so how can I sit here and say we should be hopeful? What should we be? And I would like to ask out there, come on, guys, who is feeling hopeful right now? I'd love to see some comments on there. People tell us, are you feeling hopeful? I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but why don't you take a chance and just write us a comment about how hopeful you're feeling. Here we are in the Pacific Northwest. Next week, starting after the weekend, our temperatures are going to be like 98 and 99 degrees. This is the Pacific Northwest.
And Elizabeth says, I don't feel hopeful. And Amy says, not really. And Todd says, I am because you're here.
Oh, thank you, Todd. That's it. I mean, we are not, generally speaking, and I totally understand this, but I had a very cool conversation with Todd today. And that actually brought up this topic, although I had been kind of thinking, okay, what can I say that's positive? And something occurred to me that made me feel hopeful.
And what was that?
Well, I'm playing the piano. That always makes me feel hopeful. No, I'll tell you what it is. Because the thing that we are not looking at that could make us feel hopeful is the shifts in consciousness that are happening now or could potentially happen if we get our acts together. You know, the biggest problem in our world, which people don't typically talk about, is the ego, meaning how we see everything from the lens of me, my this, my
Me,
that.
my, me.
Me, my, me, moo, moo, my, moo, 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 moo. I want me, my. And it's all short-term thinking, me-based thinking. Oh, my children need to get into this school, or I need that job. And of course, I'm not denying that all these things are true. But what I am saying is our whole perspective is from the lens of me. And what's wrong with that? Everything is wrong with that. And why do I say everything is wrong with that? Because it is. That's what's gotten us into trouble. Like, okay, this guy says, I know very well that this car is going to explode. But what would happen if I said so and suddenly we had to recall all those cars? We'd rather take a chance on so many cars exploding and pay them off than recalling all these cars and changing them. Now, you think that's crazy? I want to tell you that happened in my lifetime, and yours. You remember that too, James?
I remember that. Yeah.
Do you remember which car that was?
Toyota.
No, it wasn't a Toyota.
Well,
It
Toyota
was
had that problem.
It was like a Pinto or one of the American companies
Okay.
had the problem of maybe somebody in our audience will remember this, that they knew General Motors, somebody, they knew the car was going to catch on fire or something like that, but they went through it anyway. So, and Toyota may have done something like it as well, but it was just too expensive to fix the problem and, just pay off a couple of people who died, right? Because who cares about them anyway? So this is me, right? My company, we're all competing with each other, and I can't show any weakness, and I can't do a recall, and I can't this because that's going to look bad to my shareholders. I'm going to lose my job. It's my company, my. Okay? And so you have to show people that something is going to be profitable. It's not enough that it's going to be good. No, it has to be profitable. It's going to make my shareholders happy.
Or just each of us in everyday life wanting to win, wanting to be right.
Exactly.
Wanting to get ahead,
Exactly.
wanting to have the edge.
Exactly. It doesn't matter who we step on. This is the most important thing, is me getting ahead, getting an edge. So how is it? So I was just talking about that because if you look at the environment, it's very obvious. The fossil fuel companies knew for decades what they were doing and that it was going to lead to global warming. Scientists have said for decades that this is going to lead to global warming, not just fossil fuels, methane and so on. But everything was, well, if you can't make it profitable, then we're not going to change. We're not going to change. Now, it is so damned unprofitable. Where have we gotten to? Insurance rates are skyrocketing. Right?
Oh, here's one. Amy says, yes, Pinto.
Pinto,
It
exactly.
became synonymous with cars that became big fireballs. But there have also been makers of airbags that knew some of them would explode, letting parts hitting people. But they gambled on that not happening too frequently.
Exactly. And the Pinto was, Amy, wasn't that a Ford?
That was a Ford, yeah.
Okay. And your other example is very good. So this is the way it is. And now what's happening is that a lot of businesses are failing because of higher insurance rates, uh, um, crashes on so many levels. What is happening, do you think, to agriculture, where things are shriveling up, because they're not getting enough water or because it's too hot or whatever? So people are saying, oh my goodness, there's so much destruction. Look what's happening to me. Look what's happening to me all of a sudden. Oh my God. Oh my God. Look at Florida, one of the climate deniers of the planet. Saying, oh my God, we don't want to say that there is climate change just because the sea levels are rising and the temperatures are becoming unbearable and the farm workers are going to drop dead in the field. But hey, this doesn't matter,
You're talking about the governor of Florida?
Oh, the governor of Florida. But it's not just the governor. He represents something. So anyway, what I'm saying, the problem is ego. The problem is that I care only for me and my short-term well-being, and
gain.
And going now, and that shows up even about health. It's like, oh, I really want to eat that, or I really want to drink that because I like it. I like it. Ah. I want to eat that everybody else onto the table, or drink them onto the table to prove something about myself. Oh yeah, well the fact that that's going to give me cirrhosis of the liver in 20 years is irrelevant. So it's like, we don't think long term. I like it. I want it. I don't want to hear anything different because I want to keep doing this.
I want the sugar high.
I want the sugar high.
Notwithstanding that's going to be followed by the sugar low.
Exactly. So that's our problem, right? Is that our egoic way of seeing the world. Now, guess what's happening now? Everybody is beginning to suffer. Now, you can say that everybody beginning to suffer is a tragedy. Look at the tourists on Hawaii. Look at the tourists who had enough money to go to Europe, Southern Europe, this summer for their vacation. That would not have included James and me, by the way, that we don't have that kind of money. And they're frying. They're frying. People who want to go to tourist spots that are dying because of climate change. So what is happening, guys, is that everyone is being impacted. You can't get away from it.
You can't buy your way out of it.
You can't buy your way out of this. So we could say, oh, well, I'm too busy, or I'm too preoccupied, or I'm too this. But now, if you're flooding, or your house is burning down, or there's odd tornadoes here and there, and all of that is happening, can you say, well, I don't want to be bothered with that because it's really in the way of my summer vacation. It's like, oh God, where did my house go? So I've said this before, that climate change is the great equalizer because we're all being impacted by it. The rich can't get away either.
So would you tell us more about consciousness as a basis for hope?
Absolutely. So out of this reality, people who have been staring at their navels for all these years, maybe hearing about it, well, I knew that there is climate change, but it's not real, or it's not caused by humans, or it's not that bad, or whatever it is, are saying, oh my God, although believe it or not, there are still people who are pretending that this is not happening, or that it isn't being caused by human behavior, primarily. Okay, so all of a sudden, we are in the same boat. Rich nations, poor nations, China. Have you been reading about the natural disasters that are happening in China? So now it's not just in a little island somewhere, I was just reading about the Oregon coast and how crabbing, which is a big industry, is being impacted. There's algae in the water. This is all caused by rising temperatures in the Pacific Ocean. So, on the one hand, you say, well, we're not being impacted because it's still cool on the Oregon coast. Yeah, but the ocean ain't. And that's impacting everything. It's going to impact industry. We're all in the same boat. So, what do you think is beginning to happen? We're waking up. Oh my God, we're awakening. Awakening. So now you can start talking to people. Let's say you were one of the people who was very aware of this in the past and said, oh, but nobody wants to talk about it. Oh, you bring this topic up and they turn away and they don't want to hear about it. Or they're too busy talking about gays and lesbians as being the problem or abortion being the problem. Yeah. Compare the number of abortions to the people who are going to drop dead from the heat. You know what I mean? I'm telling you, it's like, wake the hell up. But those people who refuse to wake up now, fine, they can refuse to wake up. But how many people are waking up? Because it's finally hit us directly. There is no way to escape climate change. No way to escape it.
Look at all that smoke that came down from Canada and covered the northern United States.
Exactly.
All of those people woke up to that going on.
Exactly. You know, they didn't have forest fires up there in upper New York State, but they got the smoke from Canada. So you can't escape it. So that is part of what gives me hope, is the reality that everybody who's even remotely awake knows that this is going on. And nations and industries are really getting a little bit scared because the economy is so vulnerable to all of these disasters. You think there isn't going to be a cost to all of this. It's getting worse and worse. Now, there are a lot of people who are trying to come up with new technologies, as we know, to fix this, to fix that, to fix the other thing, and that's wonderful. But do we still have to prove that it is more profitable to save the planet than to destroy it? I mean, I ask you, do we have to prove that it is better for us to take care of our bodies than to destroy them? Same thing. See, so the realities are hitting everybody. We're all in the same boat. It doesn't matter where you are on the planet. Worrying about showing male penguins mating is really not the biggest concern we have on the planet today, and that is something that is being, oh no, we can't have these things in schools that they see that there's male penguins. That's homosexuality, because God did not create homosexuality. No, that was just like what? But how come? There's homosexuality in the natural world without human intervention, without the Democratic Party. My God, can you believe that? Anyway, we have another.
Blanquita says hello, Beth and James, and sends a heart of love.
Hola, Blanquita.
Yeah,
Gracias.
muchas gracias.
Abrazos. So anyway, so we have the fact that everybody is being impacted. That is cause for hope. Because people who are more powerful than you and I are being impacted. They have to worry about their children too. The tourist trade, believe me, is taking a hit big time. So, then there's another factor, which also gives me hope, that I'm seeing it in people. People who have been like, oh, well, you know, this is terrible, but I can't this, and I can't that, and I can't speak up, and I can't get out there, and I can't buck, you know, the world. Well, you're not bucking the world anymore, because there's a lot of people who are bucking the world. There's a lot of people who are seeing this, but I don't care. Today, I was talking to someone, and I talked about 3 people who I saw overcoming their egos and their self-centeredness. And it's not just about climate change. What about the people who are beginning to realize that proving themselves is not as important as being well and happy? I happen to know one.
Hmm.
Would you like to share something about that, about how you're beginning to
Oh, yes.
challenge
I'm
the
beginning
ego?
to make that shift out of trying to prove something about myself to being happier, being more harmonious in my relationships, and being content with my life.
Trying to do something good. There's a lot of people out there who are very good hearted. Even if they are on the opposite side of the political spectrum from you, there are people, if you don't know, you don't ask them who they're voting for, you'd be surprised. You pick people who you think, oh, well, they're not going to be understanding and loving and caring, but they are. It's just that they have their own ideas, which we have all been brainwashed, for the benefit of those people who want to be in power. They don't care what they say, and if it's going to keep them in power. If this group keeps in power, and that's ego too. See, the ego of a group says like, oh, white people, oh my God, we're going to lose our advantages. Like, oh yeah, that's the most important thing. What about we're all losing our world? What about the degree of mental illness, whether you're white, black, or brown? I mean, what about Asian? What about the white men who are committing suicide because of how they feel? There are no privileges to protect. There is a humanity, there is a society, there is a world to transform. That's our job. Now, if 3 people that I know personally have transformed in the last few days, what do you think that means?
That means more than those 3 have also transformed.
You damn straight. There was a time when yoga was very esoteric, right? And now everybody knows about yoga. They do yoga, right? At first it was like weird, and now it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to my yoga class. And it's not just LA, it's everywhere you see yoga. It's a different approach, a way of harmonizing with your own body. I think that there are people all over who are waking up. And that is the hope. So we can walk around, and now I want to say something else. Many of us feel guilty because we feel like we haven't done enough. Because we feel like, oh yeah, the world has needed big change, but I've been too scared to speak up. And I feel ashamed of myself, and I don't really like that about me and all of that. Well, let me tell you something. Feeling ashamed of yourself ain't gonna make the global warming less by 1 degree. Shame gets nowhere. The only time that shame has a place is when you recognize something you've done and it goes through you and you say, oh my God, I'm feeling shame. Well, why am I feeling shame? Well, maybe because I haven't been doing the right things and I haven't been fighting for the right things, and maybe because I've been giving into my ego and I'm so embarrassed and I'm so okay, that's enough. Okay, I've heard that. Now, if you continue with that, what are you going to be doing? Oh, I'm so ashamed of myself. Who are you thinking about? You. It's still ego, right? I am so ashamed of myself because I have been a wimp, because I haven't fought the good fight, because I haven't spoken out, because I have been afraid or embarrassed or whatever it is. To actually gather people, do something, speak up, whatever it is. Dump the shame. It's another form of ego. Let's look at coming together and solving our problem. And let's remember that if you are awakening, someone else is awakening on the same block, on the next block, in the next town, in the other country. You think we're the only ones who are aware? People all over the world are waking up. And that is where I get hopeful. I know that's true. So let's stop boo-hooing, moaning and groaning about how terrible it is, how terrible we are, how terrible I am, and let's start putting our energy into whatever presents itself for us to do. If it's it's you know, if you are becoming more awake and more courageous, and are you? Yay. If you are becoming more awake and more courageous, then something is happening. You are making the transformation that we came to this earth to make. Our job is not to lead the revolution, to create social change. Our job is to change ourselves.
To be more conscious.
To be more conscious.
And proactive.
And proactive. And every little thing we do is part of the evolution of consciousness of everyone. So if you're just waking up now and noticing, gosh, I've been in my ego, I've been competitive, I haven't been collaborative, I haven't been thinking long term, and I've had my head up my ass, well, wonderful. If you're thinking that today, the world has changed because you have changed. And the next step is to ask yourself, and what is my next step? And what am I to do? And sometimes you don't know right away. And sometimes you do. Maybe it's to confront that passivity in you. Maybe it's to take on something that you know you could have done 10 years ago and didn't. Well, do it now.
Todd says, amen.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, every time you change, the world has changed. Consciousness has changed. I don't know, brothers and sisters, whether or not the human race is going to survive all of this self-destructiveness, but I do know that consciousness is evolving. And I have a small part to play in that, and so do you. So if you have changed, be happy, because that's proof that people can evolve. And focus on that. And focus on supporting that. One thing that I would be happy to do is talk to any group, any community about consciousness, about ego, about overcoming it. We can come via the internet anytime. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for an opportunity to talk to people. So this is the good fight. So one thing you could do, bring together 3 people in your living room and let me come and talk to them.
Yeah.
That's one thing. I'm not saying there aren't other things that you can do. That's one thing. Write to us on on Facebook. Tell us you're interested. When I see the preachers, and it was reminded me of that when Todd said amen, and how they lift up people's spirits and talk a lot of stuff, some of which is bull. I think we really can do that. We can rally people. We can lift people with a real message of real change, not of subjecting ourselves to indoctrination, repetition of old stories. I'm not putting down preachers. Some of them are really awesome of this. But I'm saying we need to start preaching the positive message. I see something this.
Oh, yeah, Todd says, love this real positive message.
Great. I mean this. I mean this 100%. I want to be more effective. And in order for me to be more effective, you need to help me.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to go to any length to rally people, to rally the spirit, to talk to young people, to talk to old people. Not that we're old or anything. And to go out there and preach the gospel of consciousness. Come back next Wednesday night and I apologize for us not being able to broadcast last week. We were in a place there was no cell service, no internet, nothing. And thanks to Todd for letting people know. And I would like to see as many people liking this message as liked the message last week that we couldn't broadcast.
Right.
Come back next Wednesday night for the next edition of Lighting the Way Granny Raps and Rocks, and get in touch with me. Bring people together. Let's come together. I can help. I can help people with the emotional and spiritual conundrum and pain and downness that we're feeling, because I can see light. I'm not trying to save the human race. I'm trying to help us to awaken so that we can do what we can do together, and so in no matter what else happens, that consciousness will evolve.
Yes.
Amen. Yes. And tomorrow night is Magical Improvs, and James and I will play uplifting music for you at 7 p.m. Pacific time.
And sing. Yes.
And sing. Well, that's music too. Love you.
Love you all. Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now.